Hello YouTube, this is Sam Gerrans from Qur'an.com. Today is Thursday the 13th of June 2019 and I am now in the rather nice residential quarter of Washington DC, and I spent a lot of yesterday walking around DC with somebody associated with my work. It was very interesting. She was extremely courteous and kind and showed me the sights of the central areas, Congress and all of the big monuments and stuff there. So that was all fascinating. I have to say, my impressions here, I feel like I've reached actual America. You have, I'll just show you some actual houses. I mean, proper houses that look like they might actually stay standing for a while. It looks like a nicer part of South London. The feeling here is completely different to what I've experienced so far. Prior to Washington, and my last stop before Washington was Atlanta, so obviously that was a big jump from Atlanta to Washington, and all of that was done overnight, so I didn't see a whole lot out the window. But this is known as the East Coast, and I really like this bit. This is the first part, because I'll be honest, starting from the far west and working my way across America and all these very hot places, all these very new places, these sort of matchstick towns, matchstick cities. In fact, apart from the business centres, the banking districts, everything seems to be made out of cardboard. Here, it's not made out of cardboard. Here, it feels like this was built to last. It's not just the architecture, but the architecture accounts for a lot. You can see people here. There are some very bright people. Now I'm beginning to get some answers, why this is the most powerful country in the world. Because you can't build an empire on Big Macs. It just doesn't work that way. I don't care how enthusiastic you are. You need a logical, disciplined minds that working through strategies. And walking around here yesterday, I'm not saying everyone was a immense genius or anything, but you can spot a lot of very bright people here. I assume working in government, working in the military. I don't know, perhaps there's other stuff here. Universities are here. These are not sort of, I think they're called valley girls. Hi, how are you? I'm fine, how are you? Maybe I've got that wrong. No. These are people with a vocabulary. These are people with with books, and all of that. So now I'm beginning to get some answers. As far as America goes, it's been very interesting to go across it. Fascinating. But I'm more interested in what follows on from here. If one were ever to live in America, I think I've reached the foothills of the bit that I would personally be interested in. No prizes for knowing where I am now. This is obviously the Washington Monument behind me, famously a Freemasonic building. In fact, the whole city is Masonic, there's no question about that. What was interesting looking at this piece of Egyptian symbology is that and this was something somebody pointed out to me yesterday, they quote unquote ran out of stone halfway through and they had to change the type of stone. Again, going back to what I was talking about in my last video about the Georgia Guidestones, I don't know if I buy into these mistakes, these exceptionally well designed cities, following a predetermined pattern. Do they really make these kind of silly mistakes? I'm not saying people don't make mistakes, but I find that a little bit of a stretch. Anyway, I'm not going to go on about that too much. Something I've noticed in Washington, apart from obviously the architecture and the fact that you have a cast here of evidently very bright people, I'm quite prepared to imagine that they existed in the other places that I've been in, but they're evident here, is that I've started observing people who are buying food. The buying of food seems to be a key thing here. What I mean by that is just looking at their figure. Basically, anywhere where they're selling junk food, it's fat, stupid people buying it. I'm sorry if that sounds brutal, but this is just what I observe. And the thin, intelligent-looking people are buying their foods in delicatessens. They're spending a long time reading the back of the food. They're buying fruit. They're buying vegetables. They're in restaurants where they're choosing very carefully what to eat. And it's almost like the time machine with the Morlocks and the Eloys, the two parts of the human race splitting off into those who eat for, just to sort of meet their animal instincts, i.e. junk food, and get fat and really dumb, and those who eat as medicine and understand that maybe they don't understand that there's a war on, it doesn't matter, for whatever reason, they understand that health is their responsibility. And I really see it here, because there's this evident cast of, uber intelligent, high achieving people with, maybe they're just better at the materialistic, satanistic game than everybody else. I don't know, but they're not dumb. They've got a spring in their step. They've got something to do. They're out there doing stuff. They're not just grazing and stuffing their faces. And so I think a lot of people, if you don't come to somewhere, if you come to America and you don't see something like this, it would have been very easy to come away with an impression of sort of an idiocracy, and certainly that was the dominant impression in a lot of places that I was in. But here no, and it's but you can spot it every time you see someone buying a certain type of food. Just look at their figure, because that's what they buy. So it's fat and dumb, they're standing in line for McDonald's. Thin and smart, they're buying salads. Another thing that's interesting about Washington DC is how almost militarized it's become. Obviously they manage the tourists, and they manage them very well, and some things about it are great. For example, all of the museums apparently are free. I haven't been in any because I've just been walking around, but you can go in them. But to go in them, you have to, it's a bit like going through an airport. They're checking all your bags, they want you to comply, and thank you very much for your cooperation, sir, and all this, stuff. So basically, you do pay. You don't pay money, but you pay in honor. They want to humiliate you before you go in. Anyway, I won't go in. So behind me, if you look very carefully, you will see the White House. This is about as close as you can get to it. All the way around, you see these sort of Iraq type anti-tank charging, I don't know what they're called, these things that come up from the floor with stop and stuff written on them. But it's theatre. It's theatre. So really, what this is it's a big theatre. It's interesting from that point of view. And welcome to America. Thank you for your cooperation, sir. I think it was Confucius, or possibly Lao Tzu or somebody, who said that men are ruled by signs and by symbols. And that's the sense you get in Washington DC. It is basically a network of signs and symbols, which together, I suppose, formulate the American and the quote-unquote globalist ideal, and idea, and God, in fact. You have the Treasury, you have the White House, you have the Federal Reserve, of course, you have various shrines to, well, you've got Arlington over the river, which is where I'm going to go and have a look at now. You've got the Holocaust, quote-unquote, museum. You've got the Martin Luther King. So you've got these new religions popping up. And you kind of got to believe this. So you've got shrines to political correctness. You've got shrines to real power. I mean, the real power, not the pretend power. But you've got lots of shrines to the pretend power too. So I suppose really it's a cross between Disney World and a kind of a church. And if you don't believe in it all, then obviously you're better off keeping your mouth shut because you're something of a heretic. They've got here a quote-unquote Holocaust museum. And you have to have one. You have to have one. And God help you if you don't believe in that. In the Qur'an, we read that the the rabbinic Jews, they will not accept you unless you accept their, the word in Arabic is millat, I think, millah, their creed. And you think to yourself, well, you know, I've met a lot of Jews in my life, no one's ever tried to sell me Judaism. In fact, you're hard pressed to get into a synagogue. I've tried many times and not been able to get in for various reasons. None of them are, you know, sinister, but they're either just about to close, or you know, you're not Jewish, or some other reason, or they're just closed for lunch, or whatever it is. So, you know, our Jews have tried to sell me all kinds of stuff all through the media, but then Judaism hasn't ever been one of them. You know, you have to genuflect before it. And if you don't believe that, then they really will hit you. They'll hammer you. But that's really the religion. So it holds true. They want you to believe their religion, and if you don't believe it, you know, God help you. Well, that was quite interesting. I've just got out from the memorial. I didn't want to make this in there because you know, it's a certain amount of tax. I mean, it is a national symbol. And so on, but it was interesting looking at it. If you look where his hands are I mean, you can look up Lincoln Memorial, I'm sure you find it wherever. He's resting his hands on fasciae. They're telling me that's not you know, significant. And then on either side of these statements of purpose, a bit like that you have at the Georgia Guidestones, but here you also have fasciae. Obviously, fasciae being axe handles bound together, and the guiding symbology of fascism. You also have very Germanic-looking eagles. You know, if you looked at it, it's the symbology is almost identical to Nazism. And again, you've got these statements of purpose talking about completing work and all the rest of it. You know, you can see there that there's a narrative underneath the narrative, and a bit like the Georgia Guidestones. Something that I missed, which is that the kind of new security thing with, actually, right on cue, got a mounted policeman coming off behind me. The guns and the cameras and the body searches and all the rest of it. That's part of the symbology. It's all one big pantheon, and this is the cult. It's a psychological processing station to acclimatize, or as Americans say, acclimate you to your place as a peon in the cult. Right, well, I think I've come to the end of my wanderings around Washington, D.C. I'm off in the morning, God willing, and the next stop is Philadelphia. I'm only going to be there for like 1 day, something like that. So I just want to have a quick look round, and then after that, it's my final destination in this country, which is New York. If you're listening on YouTube, you can download my full translation of the Qur'an free using the button in the top right hand corner, or buy the hard copy there at 10% less than on Amazon. I also encourage you to sign up for the Qur'anite Plus newsletter on the site to get occasional micro updates. You can download the audio from my YouTube videos to your mobile device using the links in the drop down below. I recommend meetquranites.com to connect with other Qur'an alone believers. Like if you like, comment if you have something constructive to say, and subscribe to get more each week. And use the link in the drop down below to donate if you would like to help me keep doing this. And remember, this life is short, eternity is long. If you want good trees, plant good seeds.